The sun shone brightly over London as Prince William and Kate got ready for a special day. Today, they would take their 3 children to Westminster Abbey. This famous church has seen many royal events for over 900 years. "Are you all ready?" Kate asked as she helped 6-year-old Prince Louis with his small tie. Prince George, who was 12, stood tall and straight. He knew that one day he would be king. Princess Charlotte, who was 10, smoothed her blue dress and checked her hair one last time in the mirror. "Remember, today is important," William told his children. "Many people will be watching us." The family got into their big black car. Louis pressed his face against the window, looking at the people who lined the streets to see them pass. "Why are there so many people?" Louis asked. "They want to see us," Charlotte explained to her little brother. "We are the royal family." George sat quietly, thinking about what his father had told him. Being royal meant having big duties. Today would be his first big royal duty at the Abbey. When they arrived, many cameras flashed. Kate held Louis's hand tightly so he wouldn't run off. William put his hand on George's shoulder to guide him. Charlotte walked between her parents, smiling and waving just like her mother had taught her. Inside the Abbey, the ceiling rose high above them. Louis looked up with his mouth open in wonder. The stained glass windows showed colorful pictures that told old stories. "It's so big," Louis whispered loudly. "Shay," Charlotte reminded him gently. King Charles and Queen Camilla were already seated at the front. They smiled and waved as William, Kate, and the children walked down the long aisle. Many important people filled the seats: government leaders, church officials, and other royal family members. The Abbey's choir began to sing. Their voices filled the big space with beautiful music. Louis covered his ears at first because it was so loud. William bent down and whispered something that made Louis smile and put his hands down. George watched everything carefully. He knew he needed to learn all these royal customs. Charlotte sat with perfect posture, just like she had seen her mother do many times. When it was time for the royal family to take part in the ceremony, Kate gave each child a small nod. They had practiced this at home many times. George went first, walking slowly and carefully. Charlotte followed, keeping her chin up. Louis held his mother's hand and tried not to skip or hop. The most important part of the ceremony involved lighting a special candle. William helped George hold the long lighter. Together, they lit the flame while everyone watched. George felt proud when he didn't make any mistakes. After the main ceremony, the family had to meet many people. They stood in a line as important guests came to shake their hands. George remembered to look people in the eye, just as his father had taught him. Charlotte gave perfect little curtsies. Louis sometimes forgot and just waved happily instead. One old man bent down to speak to George. "One day you will lead our country," he said in a kind voice. George nodded seriously. As the sun began to set, casting golden light through the Abbey windows, the family prepared to leave. They had completed their first big royal duty together at Westminster Abbey, and it was just the beginning of many more to come. The next morning, the royal family ate breakfast together in their kitchen at Kensington Palace. Unlike yesterday, today they wore normal clothes. Louis had jam on his cheeks. Charlotte helped pour juice, and George checked his homework one last time before school. "You all did very well yesterday," William told them as he sipped his tea. Kate nodded in agreement. "The king was very proud of you. Can we go back to the Abbey again?" Louis asked, his eyes bright with excitement. "Yes, but not today," Kate answered. "Today we have something else special to do." After breakfast, the children went to get ready. Their nanny helped Louis find his shoes, while Charlotte and George packed small backpacks. Today they would visit a children's hospital. This would be another chance for them to learn about royal duties, but in a different way. "Remember, today is about making other people feel happy," William explained as they got into the car. "Some of the children we meet are very sick. What should we say to them?" Charlotte asked, looking a bit worried. Just be friendly and kind, Kate told her. Sometimes a smile means more than words. When they arrived at the hospital, many people were waiting to see them. Doctors in white coats and nurses in blue uniforms stood in a line. A hospital director shook William's hand and then bent down to greet each child. "Thank you for coming," the director said. "The children here have been excited all week about meeting you." Inside, the walls were painted with bright pictures of animals and space rockets. Louis pointed at a big painting of a giraffe and laughed. The royal family was led to a large playroom where sick children sat with their parents. George felt shy at first, but he remembered what his father had said about royal duties. He walked up to a boy who was sitting in a wheelchair and said hello. The boy's face lit up with happiness. Charlotte sat down at a small table where some girls were coloring pictures. She picked up a crayon and started to color too. Soon, the girls were chatting with her like she was just another friend. Louis brought a toy car to a small boy who was attached to many machines. The boy couldn't speak much, but his smile was big when Louis showed him how fast the car could go. William and Kate watched their children with pride. They were learning one of the most important parts of being royal, bringing joy to others. "My son likes your crown," one mother said to Charlotte. Charlotte looked confused. "I'm not wearing a crown today." "He means the crown in your heart," the mother explained. "He says you're a real princess because you're kind." Charlotte smiled, understanding now what being royal truly meant. After they had spent time with all the children, the nurses brought out a cake. Everyone sang a song, and the royal children helped hand out small pieces to each patient. As they were leaving, a small girl gave Louis a drawing she had made of the royal family. Louis hugged it to his chest all the way home. In the car, William looked at his children. "What did you learn today?" he asked them. "That being royal means making other people happy," George answered thoughtfully. Kate smiled, knowing her children were learning the right lessons. Being royal wasn't just about grand ceremonies in Westminster Abbey. It was also about these smaller, quieter moments of kindness and care. The next day was Sunday, which meant church for the royal family. They went to a small stone church near their country home in Norfolk. Unlike Westminster Abbey, this church was simple and peaceful. "Good morning, Your Royal Highnesses," the priest said with a warm smile as they entered. The family sat in the front row. Louis swung his legs back and forth because they didn't reach the floor. Charlotte opened her small prayer book. George sat up straight, just like his father. After church, they walked through the village. People smiled and nodded, but no one rushed toward them or took pictures. Here, they were treated more like neighbors than royals. "Can we go to the beach?" Louis asked, tugging on William's hand. William looked at Kate, who nodded. "Just for a little while," he agreed. They drove to a quiet spot on the Norfolk coast. The wind blew strong from the sea, making Charlotte's hair fly around her face. Louis ran straight to the water's edge, with William close behind him. "Don't go in too far," Kate called, though she knew William would keep him safe. George found a flat stone and tried to make it skip across the water like his father had taught him. It sank straight down. He tried again and again. "You need to throw it sideways," a voice said. George turned to see an old man with a dog standing nearby. The man didn't seem to recognize George as a prince. "Like this," the man showed him, throwing a stone that bounced 4 times on the water. "Thank you," George said politely, trying again. This time, his stone skipped twice. Meanwhile, Charlotte and Kate collected seashells. They found one shaped like a perfect star. "This is for your collection," Kate said, handing it to Charlotte. Louis splashed in the shallow water, his pants wet up to the knees despite William's efforts to keep him dry. His laughter carried on the wind. For an hour, they were just a normal family at the beach. No royal duties, no cameras, no ceremony. These were the moments William and Kate treasured most, and the ones they wanted their children to remember. "Time to go," Kate called eventually. "We have visitors coming for tea." The children groaned but obeyed. As they walked back to the car, the old man with the dog finally realized who they were. "Oh my goodness," he said, his eyes wide. "I just taught the future king how to skip stones." William laughed. "And he's a much better student than I was at his age." Back at their country house, they changed out of their sandy clothes. The house staff had prepared a special tea with small sandwiches and cakes. Their guests arrived right on time: Princess Anne, William's aunt, and her husband. The children stood in a line to greet them, just as they had been taught. "Look how tall you've all grown," Princess Anne said, giving each child a quick hug. During tea, the adults talked about royal duties and upcoming events. The children listened quietly, sometimes catching important information about what would be expected of them. "George, you'll need to attend the Trooping the Color ceremony this year," Princess Anne said. "It's time you took a more active role." George nodded seriously, though inside he felt nervous. Each year he was given more royal tasks. He looked at his father, who gave him a reassuring smile. After their guests left, the family spent the evening playing board games by the fire. These quiet moments as a family were what gave them strength for their public duties. "Remember," William told them as they played, "we are a family first, and royals second." The children nodded, understanding that their close family bond would help them face whatever royal challenges came their way. Monday morning came with rain tapping on the windows. It was a school day for the royal children. Unlike kings and queens from long ago, George, Charlotte, and Louis went to regular schools with other children. "Hurry up with your breakfast," Kate said, checking her watch. "The car will be here in 10 minutes." George packed his school bag with homework and sports clothes. Charlotte made sure she had her music book for piano lessons. Louis, who had just started school, carefully put his drawing of a dinosaur in a folder. "Will you pick us up today?" Charlotte asked her mother. "I have a meeting at the children's charity," Kate answered, "but I'll be there for Louis. Dad will get you and George." The royal protection officers waited by the cars. Even though the children went to normal schools, they always had security with them. The officers tried to stay out of sight so the children could feel like everyone else. "Have a good day," Kate said, kissing each child goodbye. "Remember who you are." This was something she often said to them. It meant, remember you are royal, but also remember you are just children who should have fun and learn. At school, George had history class first. They were studying kings and queens of England. It felt strange to learn about his own family like they were characters in a book. "George, can you tell us about King George II?" his teacher asked. George sat up straight. "He ruled for a long time and lost the American colonies," he answered. He didn't mention that this king was his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. In the playground at break time, George played football with his friends. Here, he wasn't the future king, but just the goalkeeper who needed to stop the ball. At Charlotte's school, the girls were practicing for a dance performance. Charlotte loved dancing and moved gracefully across the floor. Her teachers didn't treat her differently because she was a princess. "Charlotte, can you help Emma with the steps?" her dance teacher asked. Charlotte nodded and went to help the new girl who was struggling. Louis sat in his classroom making a card for his grandfather, King Charles. He carefully drew a crown and a horse, because he knew his grandfather liked horses. "Who's your card for, Louis?" his teacher asked. "For Grandpa," Louis answered simply, not saying, "for the king." After school, William picked up George and Charlotte as promised. "How was your day?" he asked as they got into the car. "We had a test in maths," George said. "I think I did okay. I got picked to be in the front row for the dance show," Charlotte added excitedly. William smiled. "That's wonderful. And it's because you work hard, not because you are a princess." This was important to William and Kate. They wanted their children to earn things through hard work, not royal privilege. When they got home, Kate and Louis were already there. Louis was showing Kate a star sticker he had earned for good listening. "Can we go ride bikes?" George asked after they had changed out of their school uniforms. William checked his watch. For 30 minutes. Then we need to practice for tomorrow. Tomorrow was another royal duty. The children would appear on the balcony of Buckingham Palace with the whole royal family. It was a tradition that happened every year, with thousands of people watching from below and millions more on television. Do I have to stand still a whole time again? Louis asked with a sigh. Yes, Charlotte told him firmly. And no making funny faces this time. Everyone laughed, remembering how Louis had stuck out his tongue last year, making newspaper headlines around the world. After bike riding, they practiced standing still and waving. It seemed simple, but standing in the same spot for 20 minutes was hard for active children. Remember, people wait all day to see us, William explained. We must show them respect by doing our best. The children nodded. Even at their young ages, they understood that being royal meant having responsibilities that other children didn't have. Tuesday morning was bright and clear, perfect weather for the balcony appearance. The family woke up early and dressed in their formal clothes. George wore a small suit that made him look older than 12. Charlotte's hair was tied back with a ribbon that matched her blue dress. Louis fidgeted as Kate straightened his collar. Remember what we practiced, William reminded them as they drove to Buckingham Palace. Inside the palace, other members of the royal family were gathering. King Charles and Queen Camilla greeted the children with hugs. Are you ready for your big moment? The king asked George. Yes, sir, George answered politely, though inside his stomach felt jumpy. Behind the heavy curtains, they could hear the crowd outside. Thousands of people filled the mall, the wide road leading to the palace. They were waving flags and cheering. It's time, a palace official said. The royal family walked through the grand rooms toward the balcony doors. Louis held Kate's hand tightly. Charlotte walked beside her, copying her mother's perfect posture. George and William followed, both looking serious and thoughtful. When the doors opened, the sound hit them like a wave. Cheering, clapping, and music from the military band below. The family stepped out onto the balcony, and the noise grew even louder. George stood next to his father, his face calm, though his heart beat fast. Charlotte smiled and waved gently, just as she had been taught. Louis, trying his best to be good, stood still for almost a minute before starting to wave with both hands. Military planes flew overhead in perfect formation, leaving trails of red, white, and blue smoke, the colors of the British flag. The crowd cheered even louder. Look, Louis, Kate said quietly, pointing up. Louis's eyes grew wide with excitement as he watched the planes. For 20 minutes, the royal family stood before the nation. It was one of the most important traditions of the year. George understood that one day he would stand in the center where his grandfather now stood. When they finally stepped back inside, Louis let out a big breath. I didn't make any funny faces, he announced proudly. You all did perfectly, William said, his voice warm with pride. Later that day, they returned to Kensington Palace for a private family lunch. The children changed out of their formal clothes and into comfortable ones. Now they could relax. Can we see the newspapers tomorrow? Charlotte asked as they ate lunch. I want to see our pictures. Of course, Kate said. But remember, newspapers sometimes say things that aren't true about us. This was an important lesson for the royal children. They were learning that not everything written about them would be kind or honest. After lunch, they had a special visitor, William's brother, Prince Harry, who was visiting from America. The children ran to hug their uncle, whom they didn't see very often. You've all grown so much, Harry said, lifting Louis high in the air. While the children played with their uncle, William, and Kate watched happily. Family relationships had not always been easy, but they worked hard to keep connections strong for the children's sake. Did you see us on the balcony? George asked his uncle. I watched it on TV, Harry answered. You looked very grown-up, just like your dad did at your age. As the afternoon went on, Harry showed the children pictures of their American cousins. Though they lived far apart, The cousins knew each other through video calls and rare visits. "Will we visit them soon?" Charlotte asked. "We're planning a trip," William told her. "Family is important, no matter where they live." This was another lesson William and Kate wanted their children to learn, that family bonds matter, even when royal duties sometimes got in the way. As evening came, Harry said goodbye with promises to visit again soon. The children waved from the door until his car was out of sight. "That was a big day," Kate said as they sat down for dinner. "Balcony appearance and a family visit." The children nodded, tired but happy. Being royal meant busy days, but also special moments that other children didn't get to experience. Wednesday was a school day again, but not a normal one for George. Today, his class was going on a trip to Westminster Abbey, the same place where his family had attended the ceremony just days ago. "Will they know you've been there before?" one of George's friends asked on the school bus. "Probably," George answered quietly, "but I'll pretend it's all new." When they arrived, the Abbey staff recognized George right away. They gave small nods but didn't treat him differently from the other students. This was what William and Kate had arranged with the school. George should be treated like everyone else on school trips. "This abbey has stood for almost 1,000 years, the tour guide told the class. "Many kings and queens have been crowned here." George listened carefully, even though he had heard these facts many times from his father. He raised his hand to ask questions just like his classmates did. When they reached the spot where kings and queens sit during their coronation, the guide paused. "One day, far in the future, your classmate George will sit here for his own coronation," she said. Everyone turned to look at George, who felt his face grow hot. "But that won't happen for many, many years," the guide added quickly, seeing George's discomfort. At lunchtime, the class sat in the Abbey garden to eat their packed lunches. George shared his biscuits with a boy who had forgotten his snack. His protection officers watched from a distance, trying to give him space. Meanwhile, Charlotte was at her school having a special music day. She played the piano in front of the whole school. Her fingers moved smoothly over the keys, playing a piece she had practiced for weeks. When she finished, everyone clapped loudly. Charlotte gave a small curtsy, just like she did at royal events. "Where did you learn to curtsy like that?" her music teacher asked. "My mother taught me," Charlotte answered. "It's how we say thank you when people clap for us." Louis spent his school day learning about community helpers. His class was visited by a police officer, a doctor, and a firefighter. "My grandpa is a king," Louis told the visitors proudly. "He helps the whole country." The teacher gently explained that while Louis was right about his grandfather, today they were learning about different kinds of helpers. After school, the children had different activities. George went to football practice, Charlotte had ballet, and Louis had a playdate with a school friend. Their security officers went with them, but stayed in the background. Kate picked them all up afterward. "I have a surprise," she told them in the car. "We're going to visit Great Granny's garden." The Great Granny they spoke of was Queen Elizabeth Ida, who had died 2 years earlier. Her garden at Buckingham Palace had been one of her favorite places, and now it was open to the public sometimes. When they arrived, a side gate was opened so they could enter privately. The garden was full of spring flowers. Daffodils, tulips, and bluebells covered the ground in bright colors. Great Granny loved these flowers, Kate told the children as they walked along the paths. She knew the name of every plant here. "I remember when she showed me the ducks," Louis said, running toward the small lake where ducks swam peacefully. They spent an hour walking through the garden, with Kate telling stories about the late queen. Even though the children were young when she died, it was important to William and Kate that they remembered their great-grandmother. "One day, this will all be part of your care," Kate told George as they looked across the beautiful grounds. Great Granny believed in protecting nature. George nodded seriously. He was learning that being royal wasn't just about ceremonies and balconies. It was also about taking care of special places and continuing family traditions. As they left the garden, a few tourists spotted them and took pictures. The children were used to this and gave small waves before getting into their car. "You handled that very well," Kate told them as they drove away. "Just the right amount of friendly but private." This balance between public and private was something the royal children were learning every day: when to wave and smile, and when to keep to themselves. Thursday was a rainy day in London. The royal children had a day off from school because of teacher training. For most children, a day off meant watching TV or playing games. For the royal children, it often meant joining their parents for work. "Today you're coming with me to open the new children's library," Kate told them at breakfast. "It will be good practice for your public speaking." The children had been practicing their small speeches all week. Even Louis had 3 sentences to say about why he liked books. They arrived at the new library in central London. Many people stood outside in the rain, waiting to see them. The children walked beside their mother, George and Charlotte remembering to smile and wave. Louis, sometimes forgetting and staring at the crowd with big eyes. Inside, the library was bright and colorful. A group of local children waited to meet them. Kate introduced her children one by one. "Hello, I'm George," George said, shaking hands with each child just as he had practiced. "What are your favorite books?" Charlotte did the same, asking questions and listening carefully to the answers. Louis was shy at first, but soon joined in when he saw books about dinosaurs, his favorite. Then came time for their speeches. Kate went first, talking about why libraries were important for all children. Then George stepped up to the small podium that had been adjusted to his height. "Reading helps us learn about the world," he said clearly, remembering to speak slowly like his father had taught him. "Books can take us on adventures without leaving our homes. I am very happy to open this new library where so many children will find stories to love." Charlotte spoke next, her voice confident. "My favorite books are about animals and brave girls. I hope all of you find your favorite books here too. Libraries are like treasure boxes full of stories." Then it was Louis's turn. He stepped up and looked at all the people watching him. For a moment, Kate thought he might be too nervous, but then he smiled. "I like dinosaur books and space books," he said loudly. "And books with funny pictures. Thank you for our new library." Everyone clapped and Louis beamed with pride at completing his first official speech. Afterward, they helped cut a ribbon to officially open the library. All 3 children held the big scissors together, with Kate guiding them. Cameras flashed as the ribbon fell away. Then came the fun part: choosing books to read with the local children. George sat with a group of boys his age, reading a book about explorers. Charlotte chose a story about a brave princess to read to some younger girls. Louis sat in a beanbag chair with 2 other small boys, looking at a picture book about a dragon. "They're very natural with the other children," one of the library staff said to Kate. Kate nodded. "We try to give them as many normal experiences as possible," she said. "They need to be comfortable with all kinds of people." After an hour at the library, it was time to leave. Each child was given a book as a gift. They thanked the staff politely and waved goodbye to the other children. In the car going home, George looked thoughtful. "Mum," he said, "that boy I was reading with, the one with glasses, he told me he lives in a flat with 6 other people, and they don't have many books." Kate nodded. "Not everyone has the same advantages we do," she said. "That's why public libraries are so important." "Could we send him some of our old books?" Charlotte suggested. "We have so many we don't read anymore." "That's a wonderful idea," Kate said, proud of her daughter's thoughtfulness. "We'll arrange it tomorrow." This was the lesson Kate and William wanted their children to learn, that their royal position gave them the power to help others. Even small acts of kindness mattered. When they got home, William was waiting for them. "How did the speeches go?" he asked. "Louis didn't forget a single word," Charlotte reported proudly. Louis grinned. "And I didn't even say any naughty words like Uncle Harry did when he was little." The family laughed together. These moments of family humor helped keep the children grounded despite their royal status. Later, they all helped sort through their bookshelves, finding books to donate not just to the boy George had met, but to the entire new library. Being royal meant having many privileges, but William and Kate were teaching their children that it also meant having a responsibility to share those privileges with others. Friday morning was bright and clear. Today was a special day. King Charles had invited his grandchildren to join him at Windsor Castle. This was not an official royal duty, but a private family visit. "Grandpa is going to show us the horses," Louis told his nanny excitedly as she helped him get ready. The drive to Windsor Castle took almost an hour. As they passed through the big gates, the children looked up at the castle walls that had stood for nearly 1,000 years. "Remember, it's just Grandpa and Grandma Camilla today," Kate reminded them. "You don't need to be formal." Inside the castle, King Charles and Queen Camilla were waiting in the cozy private rooms, not the grand staterooms used for official events. The children ran to hug their grandfather, who knelt down to catch them in his arms. "My goodness, you're all getting so big," he said, pretending Louis was too heavy to lift. After tea and biscuits, King Charles took the children to the royal stables. Here, the horses used for royal parades and ceremonies were kept. Each horse was big and well-groomed, with shining coats. "This is the horse I rode at the last Trooping the Color," Charles told George, pointing to a tall black horse. "Perhaps next year, you can start learning to ride in ceremonies." George looked nervous but excited at this idea. Royal horse riding was very different from the casual riding lessons he took. Charlotte went straight to a beautiful white pony. "She's lovely," she said, carefully stroking its nose. "She's yours," Charles said with a smile. "I thought it was time you had your own royal pony." Charlotte's eyes grew wide with surprise and joy. "Really? Thank you, Grandpa," she cried, hugging him tightly. Louis was not interested in the big horses. He had found the stable cats and was sitting on a hay bale, playing with a tiny kitten. After visiting the stables, King Charles took them to his garden. Unlike the formal gardens of Buckingham Palace, this was his personal project. He showed them how he had planted trees when William was just a boy, trees that were now tall and strong. "And these," he said, pointing to 3 small oak saplings, "I planted when each of you was born. They'll grow as you grow." The children stood beside their trees, amazed to think these living things were connected to them in such a special way. "When you are very old," Charles told them, "these trees will still be here, and people will know they were planted for you." This was a powerful lesson about royal history, how it stretched far into the past and far into the future. Later, Queen Camilla joined them for a walk around the castle grounds. She showed Charlotte a secret garden filled with roses. This was one of Queen Elizabeth's favorite places. She told Charlotte she would come here early in the morning when no one else was around. "Can I come here sometimes too?" Charlotte asked. "Of course," Camilla answered. "This castle will be part of your family's care for your whole life." Meanwhile, Charles was showing George the Round Tower. "From here, you can see for miles," he said as they looked out over the countryside. "Kings and queens have stood in this very spot for hundreds of years." George was quiet, taking it all in. Sometimes the weight of history felt heavy on his young shoulders. "But you know," Charles added, seeing George's serious face, "even kings need to have fun." He pointed to a grassy hill. "That's where your father and uncle used to roll down when they were boys. They would get grass stains all over their clothes, and their nanny would be very cross." George laughed, finding it hard to imagine his father doing something so silly. Louis had found the castle guards and was watching them with fascination. One guard showed him how to stand straight and tall, and Louis copied him, trying not to giggle. As the day came to an end, the family gathered for an early dinner in the private dining room. Unlike state banquets with gold plates and many servants, this was almost like a normal family meal, except they were eating in a castle that had housed kings and queens for centuries. "I've enjoyed having you all here today," Charles told his grandchildren. "You bring life and laughter to these old walls." On the drive home, The children were tired but happy. They had seen a different side of royal life today. The private, family side that the public rarely got to see. "Grandpa says, I'm just like you when you were little," Charlotte told Kate. "He says I ask too many questions." Kate smiled. "That's a good thing. The best royals are the ones who ask questions and really listen to the answers." Saturday morning was busy at Kensington Palace. The royal family was preparing for a very important day. They would all attend a special service at Westminster Abbey to mark a national holiday. "This will be different from last time," William explained to the children over breakfast. "Many more people will be there, and you'll need to be on your best behavior for longer." "Will we have to sit still the whole time?" Louis asked, already looking worried. "Yes," Charlotte told him firmly. "And no whispering or wiggling." George was quiet, mentally preparing himself for the big event. Each time they attended a public ceremony, he felt more responsibility on his shoulders. They dressed in their formal clothes, George and William in suits with ties, Charlotte in a pretty dress with a matching coat, Louis in a small suit that matched his father's, and Kate in an elegant outfit with a small hat. "You all look perfect," Kate said, inspecting them one last time before they left. The car ride to Westminster Abbey felt different this time. The children noticed more police on the streets and bigger crowds waiting behind barriers. "Wave to the people," William reminded them. "They've been waiting a long time to see us." George, Charlotte, and Louis waved from the car windows. They had been practicing this simple gesture since they were tiny, the royal wave that meant both hello and thank you for coming. Westminster Abbey looked the same as before, but inside it felt different. The space was filled with important people, not just royal family members, but government officials, religious leaders, and representatives from around the world. King Charles and Queen Camilla were already seated. The children followed their parents to their seats, walking slowly and carefully as they had been taught. Many eyes watched them, and cameras followed their every move. "Remember to smile," Kate whispered to Louis, who was looking a bit overwhelmed by all the people. The service began with music from the choir and orchestra. The beautiful sounds filled the ancient building. Charlotte loved music and closed her eyes to listen better. George watched everything with careful attention, knowing that one day he would have an important role in ceremonies like this. Louis tried his best to sit still, but it was hard for an active 6-year-old. During one long prayer, Louis started to fidget. Charlotte, without being asked, reached over and held his hand. This small gesture of kindness didn't go unnoticed by the cameras or by Kate, who gave Charlotte a proud smile. When it was time for the royal family to take part in the ceremony, they moved to the center of the abbey. William and Kate guided their children to stand in the right places. Even though they had practiced, it was different doing it for real with thousands of people watching. George stepped forward when his name was called. He placed a small wreath of flowers on a memorial stone, just as he had practiced. His hand shook slightly, but no one could tell except his father, who gave him a reassuring nod. Charlotte's role was to accept flowers from a group of school children. She smiled warmly at each child, saying thank you clearly so they could hear her. One small girl was so nervous she almost dropped her flowers. Charlotte quickly reached out to help, showing the natural kindness that made her popular with the public. Louis had the simplest job, to stand and watch. This was hard enough for him, but he remembered his sister's warning about not wiggling. He stood as still as a small statue, only his eyes moving as he watched everything with interest. After the main ceremony, the family had to greet many important people. The children shook hands and spoke politely, just as they had been taught. George was now confident.